It is time for week 6 of the NFL season, and hopefully things go better this time compared to week 5, because, woof. It was a bad week, a lot of sloppy play, a lot of unexpected outcomes, and I only went 5-9 with my predictions, and I'm at 49-29 on the year now. Really, really bad stuff. We're going to try and bounce back here in week 6. Where I'm going to do a preview, breakdown, and prediction of every single game on the schedule, and I actually do this every single week of the season, so subscribe if that's something you're interested in. Let's just dive right into the action, starting with Eagles versus Giants on Thursday night. You know, as a Giants fan, I had hoped that if the G-Men beat the Saints, that maybe this could at least be an okay game, but they sucked, and the Eagles had a bad loss. You already know they're pissed off, and what better medicine for a bad loss than by absolutely destroying your punching bag in the division, the New York Giants. In the Joe Shane, Brian Dable era, they've gotten murdered by the Eagles almost every single time, and this should be no different. The Giants are a bad football team, they can't get out of their own way, and they are horrible against the run. The Eagles haven't had a dominant performance with Saquon Barkley yet. He's questionable for this game, but should be going out there to play. He's overdue for a great performance, and there's no better way to get it than against your former team, which you don't like, against one of the worst run defenses in the league. And on top of it all, A.J. Brown may actually get fed because that secondary is undisciplined. This is the easiest Eagles win I have ever seen. The Giants are a horrible match for them, and this game should not be close. On to Sunday morning, the next London game, Denver versus the Jets. You know, the Denver Broncos are in a disappointment spot here. This is a trap game in my opinion. You just beat Philly, you're feeling good, but now you're going to London and you're playing a winless team that is hungry to get their first W. There is a world where the Jets make this uncomfortably close, if not win it, but I'm not going to say that happens. I don't trust the Jets to beat any good team. If they're playing a bad team in London, I'd maybe be more tempted to go with them, but they're playing Denver. They're well coached while the Jets are super undisciplined. They always make dumb mistakes. They fumble the ball every week. They're heavily penalized, and the Broncos are going to take advantage of that. Maybe it won't be the prettiest game in the world, but when it comes down to who you trust in the clutch, it's going to be Denver 9 times out of 10. Broncos should win this game, although I wouldn't be surprised if things get a little bit crazy. On to the Sunday 1 p.m. games, starting with the Colts versus the Cardinals, and well, yeah, I'm just going with Indy here. They have been way better and way more consistent this season. The Cardinals have shown promise at times, and this is a spot where they could pull off an upset, but they are really inconsistent, and they've actually lost 3 games in a row. I just do not trust them to beat Indy here. This is a game they should lose. They're too undisciplined, too inconsistent, while the Colts have been really good this season. They could be 5-0 right now. They played a really good game against the Rams. This has been a solid football team from top to bottom. They've been playing hard. Daniel Jones looks good. The offense is efficient, and if they're not turning the ball over, I don't see how the Cardinals can keep up. Arizona is way more likely to make some big mistakes down the stretch, and just knowing how the Colts have played this year, I think they will capitalize and get the W. They are definitely the favorites. Then you've got the Chargers going to Miami to play the Dolphins, and both teams are kind of in an awkward spot. The Dolphins just absolutely suck, while the Chargers are on a 2-game losing streak and things feel really wrong. They're trying to adjust. Hopefully Joe Alt can go back out there this week to help with the pass protection, but generally their formula for success with passing the ball just has not worked because Justin Herbert has not had time to throw. But I think this is a good bounce back situation for them. As bad as the last few weeks have been, the Dolphins are an absolute mess. They just can't get out of their own way. They keep finding very unique ways to lose matches. They're just not a good team this year. You can tell the vibes are off, and the Chargers, as a well-coached team, should be able to get back in the W column here. The Miami defense is nothing to scoff at. I think the Chargers should be able to take care of business, and they're just going to win a somewhat boring game. I don't think anything eventful happens here, but the Chargers are simply a better football team. Struggles or not, so you gotta ride with them. Next up, the Pats versus the Saints. Not gonna lie, feels a little on the trap gamey side for the Patriots. They're coming off a huge win over the Bills, and you'd be confident that you could beat a Saints team that is way worse, but you're on the road. It's never easy to play in New Orleans, and the Saints actually managed to get a W last week and will not be going 0-17. However, I still do think the Patriots will win this game. The Saints, they're still not that great of a team. I've been impressed with how scrappy they've been, but it took the Giants literally self-imploding with 5 turnovers for them to actually win a football game. And while the Pats do have a bit of a fumbling problem, it's not as bad as the Giants. They're much more well-coached. And I think after a big win against Buffalo, there's a lot of reason to trust in them. They're getting better by the week, and I think they may put together one of their most complete performances yet against New Orleans. The Pats have all the tools to get this W. A back-by-committee situation really helps them have fresh legs at all times. The Saints haven't been able to really establish the run game, so you can't expect them to hold on to the ball forever. Then at the end of the day, they've had a hard time against mobile quarterbacks. Jackson Dart is a very similar player to that of Drake May in terms of play style. He's going to run a lot. He's going to find some big passes downfield. And, with how him and Stephon Diggs have continuously been building upon their chemistry, they could be in for a great game against a very suspect New Orleans secondary. I think the Pats got this one without a shadow of a doubt. Next, in an AFC North battle, the Browns are taking on the Steelers. And to me, all the indicators point towards this being Steelers' advantage. They're coming off a bye week. They've had plenty of time to prep for this game, while the Browns just played a really tough and physical game against the Minnesota Vikings, which they lost, and they're traveling to London as well, so they may be a bit on the tired and fatigue side, and I think the Steelers should be able to take advantage and win the game as a result, but it could be a pretty close and somewhat scary game if you're Pittsburgh. They have this tendency to play the Browns really close, and sometimes they do randomly lose to them. That Browns defense is probably going to give Rodgers hell, so it will be a tough game. But overall, the Steelers are a better team. I think they built some momentum in that game against Minnesota. Their defense finally had a big performance, and against a rookie QB in Dylan Gabriel, he's probably going to struggle. There's going to be some rookie growing pains. He may have some turnovers in this game because of TJ Watt and the boys. And I think the Aaron Rodgers-led offense will eventually get through, even though for a while the Browns will probably keep this close. But they're probably going to be on the field a lot, and they eventually will get tired. They'll bend and break, and the Steelers will win, especially because it seems like Jaylen Warren could be suiting up in this game, which only makes things even more difficult for Cleveland. I got Pittsburgh, as they simply are a better team, and they're in a good situation here. Up next, the Carolina Panthers are going to Dallas to play the Cowboys. This could be a shootout in the making if the Panthers offense does show up. We know the Dallas D can't really do much of anything, so we could have a battle between Bryce Young and Dak Prescott here, and it could sneakily be one of the better games of the week. Dallas had yet another 30-plus point explosion against the Jets, while the Panthers came back down 17 to beat the Miami Dolphins. Both teams riding a bit of a high going into this game. Could be a good one, but at the end of the day, I think Dallas are simply the more trustworthy team, and that's who I am picking to win this game. Their defense is absolutely horrible, and because of that, this game's probably going to be closer than it should be, but the Panthers, to me, just aren't all that trustworthy. I don't like how many ups and downs they've had. They've been good at times, yeah, but there's also been some really ugly losses as well. They beat Miami, who frankly aren't a good team, and I mean, they did crush Atlanta, but divisional games can be weird, so I apologize if it seems like I'm putting the Panthers down here, but I'm really not impressed with what they've done so far. And again, in between, there's been some really bad matches as well. The offense still hasn't been perfect. They can't put together a complete game, and I think that's what it's going to take to beat that high-powered Dallas offense. I don't expect Carolina's defense to make a lot of the stops needed to win this game. If it ends up being a shootout, you'd probably trust Dak and the Cowboys, who've been on an absolute tear. CeeDee Lamb or no CeeDee Lamb, they're putting up 30-plus every single game, and that's just a bit too much of an ask for the Carolina Panthers to match. They've got to keep this game somewhat low scoring, in the 20s, I'd say, if they want to have a chance, and I don't trust that defense to do it. They've had their moments, but against Dallas, I think they will fall short, and this will be a Cowboys win. It's just a weird match. Speaking of potential good games, the Seahawks are taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars this week as well. Both teams coming off pretty good performances last week. The Jags got a huge dub versus the Chiefs, while the Seahawks had a crazy shootout against the Buccaneers that they lost, but it was a really good game, and if it weren't for a few mistakes, you could argue they could have won that match. This is a really interesting game. I think it's going to be scrappy. Both offenses are going to have some turnovers. Seattle and Jacksonville's defenses have both been pretty nice overall this season, so I'm expecting this to be one of the better games of the week. I'm tempted to pick Seattle here. I think the Jags are in for a letdown spot here potentially. You just beat Kansas City, you're 4-1, you're riding a high, and you might end up going into this game feeling overconfident. But there's just something about the Jags this year, man. I've gone against them a lot, and they've made me pay for it. So I'm going to hop on the bandwagon before it's too late and pick them to win this game. They just seem to be getting the best of teams in these super scrappy one-score games, aside from the random loss to Cincinnati. It's just been that kind of year, the polar opposite of last year. Sometimes it's that new head coach magic that leads to that situation where you execute late in the game. We saw it with the Giants a couple of years ago when Brian Daboll first took over. A lot of one-score games and they made the playoffs. Seems like the Jags are on a similar trajectory, and I want to ride with that high. I think their defense has been super clutch when they need it to be, and Sam Darnold, we saw him make a weird mistake against Tampa. Could happen against Jacksonville here as well. This is going to be a really good game. It's probably the one that I'm looking forward to the most, but Jacksonville, with how clutch they've been this season, I think are the more trustworthy team, so I'm going with them. Next up is the LA Rams versus the Baltimore Ravens, and obviously this game is only worth watching if Lamar is good enough to go out there, and as of right now, it seems like his status is uncertain. From what I've heard, he's got an outside shot looking in, which doesn't sound too great to me. Even if he plays, he's probably not going to be at 100%. The Ravens are extremely banged up, and that all in all favors the Rams to win this game, in my opinion, whether Lamar plays or not, especially if he doesn't. But even if he does, I think the Rams D should be able to take advantage. The Rams are healthy. They've been balling out. They had a tough loss to San Francisco and a tough loss to Philly, but they've been in every game they've played, and I think as the mistakes start to get cleaned up, that they'll continue to win big games against good teams, and this should be no exception. Not that the Ravens have been a good team this year, but obviously they're very capable of doing that, but the Ravens just seem a little too banged up right now, and if they rush Lamar back, it could be more problems than it's worth. So the Rams should be able to win this game. Could be easily, could be scrappy if Lamar plays, but either way, Rams are favored and they should win. And then in the first 4 p.m. slot, you have Super Tank Bowl between the Titans and the Raiders. I don't know if anyone in their right mind would want to watch this game unless they actually enjoy torture. Two of the worst teams in the league are going head-to-head here, and sadly, this could go either way. It's crazy to say that for the Raiders, but they really have been that bad. This is a super losable game for them with how trash Geno Smith has looked, and with how the Titans actually managed to get a W last week. It wasn't pretty, but that could help them build some momentum going forward against a super winnable opponent that loves to make mistakes. That's how the Titans got their win against the Cardinals, and if Geno Smith can't stop turning the ball over, then we could see the Titans get yet another really weird W here. However, I think I am going to pick the Raiders to win this matchup. Not that I trust them or anything, but I think compared to the Titans, they've been just a little bit more consistent. Not that it's saying much, but it literally took the Cardinals having one of the craziest self-implosions any of us have ever seen for them to get a W. Aside from that, they've mostly been really bad, and for most of that Cardinals game, they were really bad. And a rookie quarterback going against Max Crosby, I don't like that much at all. I think the Titans will go back to struggling and being inconsistent. The Raiders might be right there with them, but when it comes down to the game, I think against a terrible team, Geno Smith can at least put up some points. Ashton Genty could have a really good day. I think the Raiders are just more capable offensively in this game. And unless they turn the ball over like 2 or 3 times, then they're probably going to get this win. Strangely enough, Vegas has them as like 6.5 or I think even 5.5 point underdogs to open up the week. So I'd actually be tempted to pick the Titans spread here, but I would not pick them to win just because, again, they're a little too inconsistent for my liking. Raiders are going to win this game. Won't be pretty, but they're slightly better. And then the Bengals are taking on the Packers. And the only reason this game could be remotely interesting is because the Bengals did go out and trade with the Browns for Joe Flacco. Now that said, the trade happened on Tuesday. Who knows if he'll even be ready to start by then. But even if he does, really not sure if it makes much of a difference. Yeah, maybe Joe Flacco could be better than Jake Browning, but doesn't change the fact that the the Bengals O-line is garbage. They're playing an elite pass rush in Green Bay. And Joe Flacco himself really hasn't been all that good anyway, if we're being honest. Maybe a change of scenery does him some good. Maybe we see more of that YOLO ball from a couple of years ago when he first joined Cleveland, but I'm not getting my hopes up. Packers are still a way better team. They know Joe Flacco well because they didn't play him all that long ago. This should be a pretty easy win for the Packers, even if Flacco goes out there. Then we got more of a good one, the 49ers versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Another what I consider to be 50-50 matchup. The Buccaneers are absolutely the better football team, but the Niners have just had this way of winning, similar to Jacksonville, but in a more interesting way. They're injured, they have Mac Jones out there, but they just keep finding ways to do it. With Brock Purdy in the game, you'd really expect them to lose just because he hasn't looked as good as Mac Jones, surprisingly. But from what I've heard, Purdy's still not even back at practice, so it should be the Mac Jones show yet again. He's 3-0 on the year, and he might be able to pull off some more magic against a Tampa defense that has been pretty spotty throughout this year. But the thing is, they're not the only special team in this matchup. This Buccaneers team has had a lot of magic to them as well this year. There's been a lot of games that have been super close that they've won with some super clutch Baker Mayfield drives. They've also been injured, but they've continued to have a really explosive offense, and they could be 5-0 right now. They were damn close to making it happen. This is a very good Buccaneers team, and maybe the best version of them yet in the Baker Mayfield era. This is going to be a tough game. I think the Niners definitely can win it if they're able to maintain time of possession. If they keep this from getting too out of hand with the score, and their defense bends but doesn't break, they'll have a chance at this. If they feed CMC lots and they take their time with some intermediate passes like in the Rams game, they've got a real opportunity here. But I think the Buccaneers are going to win this one. Mac Jones is bound to lose eventually. Seems like he's going to start because Brock Purdy has not been back at practice. I think he's overdue for an L here, and it's going to happen against Tampa. It could be somewhat high scoring, but I think unless Tampa makes a lot of mistakes like the Rams did, that this should be going their way. It'll be a very competitive contest. These are two well-coached teams, but I like the magic of Baker and the Bucs a little bit more than the Niners. Every time I doubt this Bucs team, they make me pay for it, so I'm going for Tampa Bay here. And then on Sunday night, this is a huge one. The Detroit Lions versus the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs have continued their very weird season so far. They're 0-3 in one-score games, very unlike them. They find themselves at 2-3, in danger of going 2-4 to start the year, and they're playing a Lions team that, since week 2, has looked incredibly good. They've scored 30-plus in like 4 straight games. They're on a roll right now. They've beaten the Chiefs before. They know they can beat them again. Very dangerous spot for Kansas City here, and even though they're at home, I would argue that the Lions should be slightly favored. They've been a better, more consistent football team on the year. They've battled against some good teams, and they've had mixed results so far, but like I said, they've been on a streak lately. They've been on a heater. They've been putting up mad points, and KC, with how inconsistent their offense has been, it could be a bit of a troublesome matchup for them here if the Lions bring their A game. It feels like Chris Jones has been relatively ineffective this year. He's playing against a goated Detroit offensive line. I think the Lions have a real shot at winning this game, and every fiber of my being is telling me the Lions are a better team, and they win this 9 times out of 10. But I think this could be that 1 time out of 10. KC still have Pat Mahomes, and just something about them starting 2-4 does not sit right with me. It very well should happen. I really do think that the Lions should win this game, but I think it's because of that they'll lose. Reverse psychology. The Chiefs going 2-4, 2 games under 500 with Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid, that just doesn't feel realistic to me. I think they're going to bullshit their way to a win here, and they'll get back on the right track. This probably will be a tight contest. Detroit's defense is better than some people give it credit for, but again, something about KC being 2 games under 500 just doesn't feel realistic to me. It wouldn't be the NFL if the Chiefs are irrelevant, and I think they're going to prove that to the world by getting a random W that they probably should not get. And then we head over to Monday night, where again we're doing this BS with a doubleheader. First of which is the Bears versus the Commanders. If you remember the last time these two played, we had the Hail Mary miracle with all the memes with the Bears. So you know Chicago want to get some revenge for that one. They're coming off a bye, well rested against a somewhat beat up Commanders team. They could be in a good spot to get a surprise W here. Do I think they will get said W though? Oh no. Absolutely not. You can't trust the Bears to do anything, even though I do think this team has a bit of a different vibe compared to previous iterations. They still are Chicago. They still find unique ways to mess things up, and the Commanders are just a better football team to me. Jaden Daniels, despite having a knee injury, still looked good against the Chargers. I've loved the pass rush. I think they're going to give Caleb Williams some trouble in this game. There's a possibility that Terry McLaurin is ready for Week 6 as well, and he's overdue for a big game at this point, so I think the Commanders are going to edge it out. Jaden Daniels is just a better QB than Caleb Williams. I think this match means something to him, and he's going to give it his A game so long as he is somewhat healthy. I think as the weeks go on, he'll become more mobile, and that'll be a problem for the Chicago defense. It's a tough spot. I think it might end up being a one-score game just like the last time, but I got the Commanders winning this one. Anyway, concluding Week 6, you've got a matchup between the Bills and the Falcons. Atlanta, another team coming off of a bye, probably feeling pretty good after watching Buffalo really struggle. There's room for them to win here at home. Michael Penix has had his moments, and Bijan's a beast, and against that Buffalo defense, which is pretty suspect, they could be in for a good day. This could end up being a shootout. But do I trust the Falcons to get the win at the end of the day? No, I don't. A lot of good teams had a bad week in Week 5, and I think Josh Allen and the boys will clean up from their mistakes, and they'll look a lot better against an Atlanta defense, which really isn't that special either. I'm thinking it's a high-scoring contest, but Josh Allen and the boys will clutch it out. The Falcons have lost a lot of close games in the Michael Penix era so far, and I think this one will be no different. Josh Allen will outduel Michael Penix, and they'll win like 31-28 or something. Although the Atlanta spread for this one looking pretty tempting to potentially bet on, but we'll leave it at that. Texans and Vikings are on a bye. We only got 15 games this week. Let me know which matches you're looking forward to down in the comments below and what your best bets are for this week. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new for more weekly NFL content.